Hello, it's James from XRobots.co.uk. This is part 25 of Hulkbuster. So last time we did lots of things and we put in these opening panels for the shoulders, which means that the helmet can then flip back in place. And also we can put weapons and things in there. And basically I took the torso here off the leg so I can work on it at this level. So a few people were wondering how heavy it is now that I've put these panels on. There isn't too much more weight to go on, only really foam and other lightweight sheet materials to actually go on this frame that I've 3D printed. But a few people want to see me wear it. So the ceiling's a bit low in here. I'm going to try and wear it with the legs in a moment, but first I'm just going to pick up the torso to show that it's not that heavy actually. So obviously it's not super mega lightweight, but it's not that bad. So I haven't actually fixed the springs on the back doors, so I just have to duck underneath. Hopefully I should be able to just pick the whole thing up. There we go. So I'll just find those joysticks. So yeah, it's not too bad. Quite happy with that. Should be able to walk on the legs with it as well. It's not the lightest weight suit, but it's really okay. I'm obviously not going to be wearing it for long periods. It's going to be something that mostly freestands and I occasionally jump into to demo. So I'm not going to be spending, you know, 5 hours in it like I did with my other Iron Man suit. But it's actually pretty comfortable. I've got quite a lot of foam padding on the shoulders. And on the whole, it's, you know, not too bad. Quite a long reach. So let me put this down. I'm going to get the legs. We'll put it back on the legs. And then we'll see if I can walk around in it. Hopefully, we'll have to watch out for the ceiling, so I'm not going to go very far. So I've got the longest shot possible here. I've got my snowboard boots on that fit into the bindings. So now I'm going to try and get into it without hitting the ceiling as I pick up the torso. I've had to take the helmet hinge parts off that I've left on the shoulder pieces. And so we're going to try and give it a go, and hopefully all of my latching that worked for the knees and everything will work properly. So let's see if I can actually get inside. Alright, so that's on. I just need to find the cables to release the knees. I think are there. Eventually these will have proper levers. And there we go. So that should be both knees loose. So now I just need to pull up the straps for the shoulder. There we go. So that's my snowboard bindings on. So that should be it. So to watch out for the ceiling. I'm feeling okay, I think. So this all padding around my knees by the looks of it. I've still got that banging sound on the toes which fold over as I walk. That's what that is. So I have to watch out for my quad plate. Essentially watch my hands so I don't trash everything. And essentially I can walk around, there's a few things banging and so on, but ultimately it's almost practical. So there are a couple of practical issues. Looking at that footage back, it actually looks quite ludicrous. The main two issues I was having there was actually knocking my ankles together because I forgot that my legs are super wide when I'm wearing the suit. And that's one of the problems I had in the first place. And basically it just involves me walking with my legs further apart. The other one is there seems to be quite a lot of wobble in the legs. And the legs kind of, I think they were banging on the cod plate, possibly on each other at some point. And the main reason for that is there's actually nothing connecting them to my legs. So my feet are in the snowboard bindings. The only other thing holding the thigh onto the rest of the torso is a bungee cord. The knee hinge is obviously loose to do what it wants. So basically the thighs are kind of wobbling independently of my legs. So to combat that, there's actually going to be some foam padding in the front of them, so they're always pressed against my thighs, so they'll be much more in sync. The other issue is I just obviously haven't got space in here. In fact, I've scuffed the ceiling there with some red paint off the shoulder bell. So really I just need to go and take this somewhere where I can use it outdoors and there's more space to move around and try different things. It doesn't fit in my car though in one go, so that's going to have to wait, unfortunately. But today we're actually going to have a closer look at the legs and try and sort out some of those mechanics, and we'll probably try and resolve some of those issues. So there are a couple of things that were tripping me up. The first one I found, and I'm not sure why it's there, but are these pieces of wood sticking out far further than they need to. They seem to be there at both ends, I'm not sure why, so I'm going to saw those off. So hopefully my legs don't catch on each other. You might have noticed my little trip that I did when I was doing the demo. I've got these things at the knees as well, but they're kind of unavoidable, so they're probably going to get some smooth covers on them so they don't catch on each other. And the other issue I was mentioning with the lack of foam in the knees, basically when I pick up the torso, I've got this thing here with the bungee cord that runs through it, and they separate. But what's actually happening when I pick my legs up is that there's not much space between them. So in fact, as I pick my leg up, the whole thigh lifts up and hits this piece. And the reason is for that is that actually there's quite a lot of space in front of my knee inside. So if we just go round the back, so my knee almost touches this, but as I bend my leg bends inside here. Which means that basically when I lift this up, the whole thing lifts up, and these bang on each other instead of the leg actually bending because my knee is not pushing this. So all I actually need to do is put some foam in between these pieces or on here so my knee pushes it forward, and hopefully that should make the walking a lot smoother. And these two bits of wood are my safety wood to stop it falling over. So let's saw those bits of wood off. Perhaps we'll stick some foam in and give it another go. Right, so let's try again. Alright, so I'm in, and my knees are now pressing against the foam, so that feels better already when I bend my legs. It actually feels like they're attached. I think that's working a bit more as desired, so I can feel that the thigh is actually bending. Let me try and turn sideways. So hopefully you can see, and I bend my legs there. It's feeling a lot more locked in. I can't really see if I'm banging on my cod plate or if anything else is going on, but well, there goes the ceiling and some other stuff. We're feeling a bit better anyway. It's a bit stampy, but so that felt marginally better. It felt like the legs were attached to my legs a bit tighter with those extra foam pads, and I definitely didn't bang my legs together so much. I think probably because of sawing those pieces of wood off, but generally I was more conscious of it. Obviously I've not had that much time to practice walking in the suit, and as you can see the ceiling is a real issue. The ceiling is now covered with lots of nice red scuffs of paint on both sides, so it'd be really good to take it to a bigger space and practice walking in it. Obviously the extra weight on the top has made things slightly more awkward. If you remember, I have those flip over toes which are quite weird to walk in. So there's a toe piece where the ball of the foot is, but it's much lower than my actual foot, and my foot is fixed. So when I was originally testing the chassis without the top on, it was much easier to walk in and do sorts of action poses and things like that. So I just need to kind of get used to having that extra weight on the top and work out what to do, and possibly stiffen up the spring that pulls that back, so that could actually be a much stiffer spring that supports my weight a lot so that I don't overbalance forwards. But for now, it's as practical as it's ever going to be without a complete redesign. So I'm going to get on and make some more of the leg frame parts. Here it is in profile, so you can see the legs are quite skinny back to front compared to the rest of it, which has the big backpack thing that sticks out, which are the doors that open, and the chest plate sticks out as well. So obviously we need to build some frame parts out for the legs that make those legs wider back to front. So I'd already started doing this in one of the previous episodes. I'd already put in this piece, which is the side panel on the leg, which is in the middle of the leg profile and is almost at the back there of the actual wooden chassis. So the leg is going to come out bigger basically, and I need to make these opening doors. Now the legs are going to be quite wide, so they need to stick out quite a bit at the back, and there's going to be lots of features on them like these on the outside. So the problem is, if we just put a hinge on here and have a door that swings open, basically as it hinges, the outside features will crash into each other, and it's going to be quite hard to get that clearance and get a sort of seamless featured finish. So what we really need to do is make a leg which effectively comes out and then hinges open, a bit like we did with the shoulder pods. So what I'm going to do, at least for the shins at the bottom of the leg here, is have a mechanism which drops outwards and then hinges open, and hopefully we're going to make that all one mechanism so we can pull it with one cable or one spring. For the thighs, I think those are going to be attached to the back of that door and have independent hinges from the actual knee hinge, so that when this pushes backwards, it pushes the other thigh piece backwards. We'll have to see how that goes. And then hopefully we'll have somewhere a floating bum plate which goes in between the top armour and the thigh armour. I'm not quite sure how that's going to be fixed on, but it's possible it could potentially be hinged onto one of these pieces, so that swings open again independently, but we'll have to see how that goes. So let's have a look at some mechanisms. So here's a piece of planning that I've done in Lego as usual. So basically what we're going to have is this 4-bar link. So this is going to be in profile down the side of the leg, and we've got this lever. So if you can imagine, this piece is the back panel, and as the lever operates, it comes out and drops back at an angle like that, and then hinged onto this we will have a door which swings open, or whichever way you'd like to look at it, obviously the opposite on the other side. And hopefully that swinging of the door is going to be actuated with another lever as the door moves away from this piece, which actually doesn't exist. This represents the leg. Now bear in mind, this needs to be set back from the leg slightly, so we need to have some sort of frame with 2 pivot points sticking out about 6 inches or so out of the back of the leg, and then we need to have these parallel lengths with different lengths to get that nice dropping back angle. So let's have a look at some CAD. The first part is this piece here, which basically screws onto each leg. So we've got 4 screw holes in the right hand side, and then that has 2 pivot points which of course stick out of the back of the leg, and those are sticking out on those 2 sticks so that I can have things pivot around them without any part of the chassis being in the way. The other parts are these links, which are made in a very similar way to the shoulder mechanisms that I did, where I've got these dual parts, so the H-shaped part and the other part on the left. So that long stick sticking out of the part on the left at the bottom is the lever to actuate the whole thing, and then everything else is these dual links. And the final part is this part here, which has the hinge points on it the other way for hinging the actual door. So we're going to get those printed, get them stuck together. We'll try and make a simple back door as a placeholder, and then we'll see how we can put the other link in to open the door as this slides backwards. So here are my assembled mechanisms. I've put both of them together. As usual, I've used the 8mm bits of studding in there with the slot cut in to make the hinges. So these pieces work quite well. So it's very similar to the Lego version, but obviously quite a bit bigger, and I've got this lever here which activates it. So now I need to mount my actual back door on the hinge part, mount this on the wooden leg on the outside, and this causes the back door to drop open, so it's going to be clear what's going on when we've mounted it. But for now we need to have something that mounts on these hinge points and also has another hinge point which flips that door open as this moves away from the leg. So let's have a look at that. Here are the next interesting looking parts, which consist of this sort of double H ladder thing and two T sections. And those assemble with acetone welds, which I've used acetone there to join the pieces together because the parts are printed in ABS, which dissolves in acetone, so we can make a chemical weld. I've joined those together to make this. And this piece hinges onto the lugs that I left here. And it also has another piece sticking out with a hole in each end. So a piece of 6mm studding will run between here, which will allow the lever point to hinge this backwards, which will attach to the leg. So as this piece moves back and drops back, this thing will hopefully hinge open at the same time. So I'm going to put this together and get them mounted onto the legs, and then we can see how well that works. And we need to make that additional lever piece with a double hinged piece at each end. I've temporarily attached this to the leg here just with some clamps. I'm not sure exactly what this distance is. I think it actually needs to go further in. So obviously as this lever actuates, the back now drops down. What we need to do is open that door, which is mounted here. So the easiest thing to do here, of course, which is why the studding is here, is to put a linkage in from here to the leg. So as this hinges down, the door gets pulled open, which should work quite well. So at the top here I've got more travel, and the bottom I've got less because this lever is longer than this one. So if I put the lever at the top, then the door is going to swing more because there's more travel at the top, and if I put the lever at the bottom, then it will move less. And somewhere in between obviously means I can tune how much this door swings open. So what I need to do is make a lever that goes from here back to the leg, but also, as well as hinging this way, it also needs to hinge this way because this thing moves down. So I need to effectively make something with a double joint at each end, or come up with another solution. The piece I'm going to use for the lever is going to be a hybrid print with the Lulzbot Flexi Dually dual extruder, which has one extruder for Ninja Flex rubber and the other one for rigid materials. So I'm going to print a rigid stick there, which is in blue, and I'm going to print rubber ends for it, which are going to be bonded together to the plastic and all made in one print. So basically it's going to switch materials on each layer to make this in one piece. So basically it's a stick with rubber ends on, and that means it can flex in all of the directions it needs to as the back door opens. So let's have a look at the printer printing that. So the printer's a couple of layers in, so you can see the orange ends on this thing, and it's currently doing ABS with the back extruder. Now it's retracting ABS and it's bringing out Ninja Flex, which are the orange ends. So that should then go and print the Ninja Flex sections. So that's almost the end of the Ninja Flex for that layer. So now it retracts the Ninja Flex, brings out the ABS, and off it goes again. Here are the finished items. I've done one for each side. So you can see the orange pieces are flexible there. So I've got this flexible piece which goes that way, and the other ends will flex quite nicely that way. And obviously what I've done here is embedded these parts in each other so they're bonded really well, and the same on the other axis on the other end. So these have come out incredibly well. They're quite clean prints. There's always a bit of Ninja Flex ooze, but most of it gets wiped on the skirt on the bed that you could see there. So let's get all this together and see how well it works. I've got those mounted and I've got my sticks with their flexible ends on. So now if we just give these a push, they fall open. And in doing so, the back door hinges open as well, which is quite special. So I've got the levers on, of course, to pull them shut, which will probably be a cable-driven mechanism to pull that shut, and some sort of spring that just pushes it open. And obviously with the back cage on here, that's going to be heavier, so it will just fall open with gravity and be held shut with a cable mechanism of some sort, possibly motorised, but definitely with a manual override. I'm pretty happy with how that mechanism's turned out, so I can open the back doors here and get those shell parts well away from the side panels. So that's worked out quite well. It's going to be quite good to mount the actual shells for the calves. Obviously these stick out quite a bit, so it's going to have quite big calves, and obviously the heel of the shoe has kind of little toes on it, and the front of the foot is round, so it's going to look quite a bit like the Hulkbuster, hopefully in the Age of Ultron film when it comes out. So I think on reflection, the back of the thighs is going to be actually attached to the bum plate that's going to hinge out in two halves. So it's going to look pretty good when the back of this opens, the gull-wing doors go up, and the back of the shins open right out, so you can climb in, obviously accompanied with sound effects and some lights inside and that sort of thing. So in the upcoming episodes, I'm going to be framing out the legs, because they've been rather neglected, trying to get those feet shape on, and really get kind of the toes and all of those bits and pieces on, so then we can kind of see the outer shape of what this thing is going to look like. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel for updates on this project and other projects, and also check out my social media links in the description to this video.